In the far south, where the Andes mountain range finally surrenders to the Antarctic currents and the continental landmass fractures into 1,000 islands, lies a land defined by a violent, perfect geometry of rock, ice, and wind. This is Patagonia. It is not a country, but a geographical force. A territory that begins where civilization ends, spanning the lower latitudes of both Chile and Argentina. It is a name that whispers of explorers like Magellan, of storms, and of the profound, lonely silence found at the true edge of the map. The word itself, possibly derived from the vast footprints of the tall indigenous people seen by the early chroniclers of Ferdinand Magellan's voyage in the 1520s, conjures a sense of the gigantic and the unknown. This land has always resisted definition, tempting the brave and humbling the arrogant. Even today, the region remains sparsely populated, a testament to its brutal, untamed climate. The historical tales of shipwrecks and failed colonies are woven into the very fabric of its coastlines. Patagonia is one of Earth's ultimate wildernesses. A land so large, it encompasses everything from the arid, golden steppe in the east to the wet, fragmented coastline and subpolar rainforests of the west. To travel its length is to witness the full spectrum of geological and climatic extremes. The sheer distance from any major metropolitan area reinforces its powerful sense of isolation. But it is one force above all that governs this realm: the roaring Forties. A relentless, unimpeded river of air that circles the globe at latitudes 40 and 50 south, slamming directly into the towering, vertical wall of the Andes. This constant, high-speed wind is Patagonia's signature. The invisible sculptor that has honed the peaks and shaped the culture. It defines the survival of every plant and animal that dares to root itself in this harsh soil. The wind is often so strong that it becomes a physical barrier, forcing travelers to halt for hours. The mountains here are not gentle slopes. They are monuments forged in fire and carved by ice. They are monolithic masses of granite and basalt. Thrust upward by the collision of the Nazca and South American tectonic plates. Their final, dramatic shape is the result of millions of years of glacial erosion, which has scraped away softer surrounding rock, leaving only the hard, crystalline cores standing like impossibly sharp spires. The peaks themselves look like razor-sharp knives pointed at the sky. This film is a journey to understand this elemental conflict. How life and the human spirit can persist in a landscape that actively rejects settlement. We will look into the wind-battered tents of the world's most elite climbers, navigate the treacherous waterways of the Deep South, and explore the silent, vast glaciers that still shape the fate of the planet's water supply. This is the definitive story of Patagonia, the end of the world. The granite monuments, Fitz and Cerro Torre. Our focus begins in the Argentine sector of Los Glaciares National Park. At the impossible cluster of peaks known collectively as the Chaltén Massif. This is the spiritual heart of Patagonian climbing. A place where the difficulty of the approach is compounded 100 times by the ferocity of the weather. The entire massif is a dreamscape of vertical rock. The most famous is Cerro Fitz, known locally as Mount Chaltén, meaning smoking mountain. A name given by the indigenous Tehuelche people, who often saw its summit shrouded in clouds and mist, an illusion of volcanic activity. Its sheer bulk and isolation demand respect. The peak, rising to 3,405 meters, is often considered a far greater climbing challenge than mountains twice its altitude. Because of the persistent, high-speed winds and unpredictable storms. Its visual presence on the horizon is majestic. A sharp cathedral of rock dominating the flat landscape. Geologically, these spires are a granite batholith, a huge subterranean magma chamber that cooled slowly over millions of years beneath the Earth's surface. This slow cooling allowed the formation of large, tightly interlocked crystals, making the granite incredibly hard and resistant to the forces of erosion. The softer sedimentary rock that once covered it was scoured away by successive periods of glacial ice sheets, exposing the crystalline core we see today. The mountains are literally the geological skeleton of the continent. Massive chunks of rock thrust upward by immense forces. The true legend, however, is Cerro Torre. It is often described as the most beautiful and terrifying mountain on Earth. Its needle-like spike rises to 3,128 meters, slender and impossible, a testament to the concentrated forces of nature. Its perfect sheer verticality is intimidating enough, but its most infamous feature is its summit. The summit of Cerro Torre is perpetually encased in a rime ice mushroom, a cornice of frozen fog and wind that can be up to 15 meters thick. This is not static ice. It is fragile, crystalline ice that must be climbed with extreme caution, often requiring climbers to delicately chip away at it or even hang from it like a massive pendulum. This feature makes the final 100 feet of the climb arguably the most technically dangerous in the world. The delicate ice structures are a constant threat to detach and crash down. The notorious Patagonian wind acts like a relentless sculptor, stripping away anything weak, whether it's the skin of a climber or the last vestiges of soil. The speeds recorded here routinely exceed 120 kilometers per hour, making climbing an exercise in physical survival, not just technical skill. The wind forces climbers to spend agonizing weeks sheltered in tiny, wind-battered tents, waiting for the brief reprieve that makes ascent possible, a period climbers call the Patagonian gold window. Even when climbing, the wind can rip a climber from the rock, turning a technical challenge into a high-stakes emergency. The sound of the wind alone is enough to break a person's will. The legendary climbers who tackle these peaks, from Lionel Torre, who achieved the first confirmed ascent of Fitz, to modern giants like Alex Honnold and Tommy Caldwell, often spend weeks enduring the brutal conditions. Their narratives are less about the successful summit and more about the endurance and patience required for the approach and the wait. The mountain enforces a unique rule. The approach is the crux. Climbers must be masters of both rock and ice, ready to pivot their technique instantly based on the weather's whim. This region is also home to the Yámana Glacier, located south of the Fitz Massif. It is one of the largest and most dynamic ice masses in the area. A wide river of ice that stretches out for miles before terminating in the vast Lake Yámana. The glacier front is a constantly shifting spectacle of blue and white, a tangible link between the high-altitude snowpack and the coastal watershed. The constant grinding movement of the Yámana is a powerful reminder that all of this spectacular landscape is still being actively shaped. Glacial ice carving into the cold, deep blue water of the lake is a frequent occurrence here. The Southern Patagonian Ice Field. South of the granite spires lies the colossal engine of the region, the Southern Patagonian Ice Field. This is the third largest reserve of fresh water on Earth, surpassed only by the ice caps of Antarctica and Greenland. It is a frozen continent stretching approximately 350 kilometers north to south, straddling the border between Argentina and Chile. Its sheer volume is a climate regulator, and its meltwater feeds a vast network of rivers and lakes, including the source of the Santa Cruz River. Its sheer scale imposes an absolute geographical isolation. To cross it is a feat of extreme expeditionary travel. Often taking weeks and requiring expert navigation skills to avoid falling into hidden crevasses or succumbing to sudden whiteout storms. The feeling of solitude here is profound. The ice field is a place where you are truly on your own, dependent entirely on the integrity of your equipment and the skill of your team. The ice field is the source of countless glacial outflows, most famously the Perito Moreno Glacier. This glacier, located in Argentina, is a geological anomaly that draws massive crowds. Unlike 90% of the world's glaciers, which are rapidly retreating due to climate change, Perito Moreno remains in a state of dynamic equilibrium, meaning the rate of accumulation, snowfall, is roughly equal to the rate of ablation. This is partly due to its unique geographical positioning, receiving massive amounts of precipitation from the Pacific, and partly due to its structural resistance. The glacier's flow is funneled through a narrow channel into Lake Argentino, periodically advancing far enough to create a massive natural dam that blocks the lake's southern arm. When the pressure from the trapped water becomes too immense, the glacier wall spectacularly collapses in a massive ice bridge rupture, a multi-day event of thunderous noise and visual drama. This unique cycle of advance and rupture makes Perito Moreno a globally significant natural spectacle and a subject of intensive glaciological study. The water that breaks through the bridge is the most powerful flash flood on the planet. The sound of the carving process, the breaking and crashing of ice, is a deep, earth-shaking roar that echoes across the water. It is a sound that conveys the raw, unhurried power of geology at work. The ice blocks that fall are often the size of small buildings, generating surge waves that travel across the cold lake. The entire process is a constant reminder of the volatile nature of the ice. Traveling across the ice field is perhaps the closest you can get to being on an alien planet. The endless, featureless white can be disorienting, and the only horizon is the line where the white sky meets the white ice. Expedition teams must be roped together at all times, moving cautiously across a surface that is constantly shifting due to the subglacial meltwater lubricating its base. The ice field is riddled with crevasses, bottomless vertical fissures hidden by a fragile layer of snow called a snow bridge. These hidden traps are the single greatest danger to travelers. Looking down into a crevasse reveals the intense blue color of ancient, compressed ice. Ice that has been squeezed so tightly that it absorbs all the colors of the visible spectrum except blue. The water collecting at the bottom is an astonishing shade of azure, a powerful testament to the density of the ice. The ice here is a physical record of millennia. Within its blue depths, glaciologists can read the history of the continent. Studying the trapped air bubbles to measure past atmospheric compositions and temperatures. The constant freezing and thawing in the region contributes to the dramatic erosion that exposes the sharp rock, carrying vast quantities of glacial sediment, known as glacial till, down to the valleys. This till creates the unique milky blue color of the Patagonian lakes as the fine rock dust or flour is suspended in the water. On the Chilean side, the ice field feeds massive, lesser-known glaciers like the Grey Glacier and the Tyndall Glacier, both of which carve into the large, remote lakes of Torre del Paine National Park. The access to these areas is often restricted, preserving the ecosystem and reinforcing the sense of pristine, untouchable wilderness. The steppe and wildlife. The tundra kingdom. East of the mountain barrier. Beyond the immediate reach of the wet Pacific winds, the Patagonian steppe stretches out to the Atlantic. A vast, dry, and unforgiving grassland that makes up the majority of the Patagonian landmass. This environment is characterized by high, desiccating winds and low precipitation, supporting only hardy, low-lying vegetation adapted to the extreme conditions. The landscape is dominated by tussock grasses and sparse shrubs, perfectly suited for grazing. The dominant herbivore of this expansive ecosystem is the guanaco, a wild, tawny-colored camelid ancestor of the llama, perfectly adapted to the dry, windy conditions. Their agility allows them to navigate the rugged terrain, and their herds are constantly moving in search of limited grazing land. Their population numbers are a key indicator of the health of the entire steppe ecosystem. The The guanaco serves as the primary prey species, making it the linchpin of the local food chain. They are constantly hunted by the apex predator of the region, the puma or cougar. Patagonia is one of the best places in the world to observe the puma in its natural habitat, particularly in the protected areas of Torre del Paine. This magnificent predator is a creature of stealth, using the tussock grasses and rocky outcrops for cover as it stalks its prey. The puma's survival is intrinsically linked to the guanaco's population, creating a fascinating and brutal ecological balance. Modern conservation efforts now focus on protecting both predator and prey to maintain this delicate natural state. The isolation of the region has been a sanctuary for these animals, protecting them from excessive human disturbance. Their lives are dictated by the brutal cycle of the seasons, from the harsh, snowbound winters to the brief, fertile summers. Other wildlife includes the Patagonian fox, the flightless rhea, a large ostrich-like bird, and various hardy rodents like the Patagonian carve. The region is also a key nesting area for various migratory seabirds along the Atlantic coast. Above it all rides the Andean condor, one of the largest flying birds in the world, with a wingspan that can exceed 3 meters. The condor is a scavenger, an essential component of the ecosystem, cleaning carcasses left by pumas and natural causes. It uses the thermal currents and the constant, high-speed Patagonian winds to soar effortlessly for hours without a single wing beat, a visual symbol of the vast, open sky and freedom. The steppe also holds deep human history. The Tehuelche people were the first inhabitants of this grassland, nomadic hunter-gatherers who followed the guanaco herds across the vast distances. They were a physically imposing people, and their mastery of the open plains was absolute. They survived by mastering the bow and the bola, a weighted throwing weapon designed to tangle the legs of fast-running game. Their ability to cover vast distances on foot, and later on horses, which they quickly adopted from the Spanish, made them legendary. Their legacy remains in the ancient rock art, cave paintings and petroglyphs found in protected areas, documenting their hunts and their spiritual connection to the land. Sites like Cueva de las Manos offer a tangible link to this ancient past, showing stenciled hands and hunting scenes thousands of years old. Near the Chilean border, we find Torre del Paine National Park, famed for its 3 iconic granite towers, monolithic pinnacles that rise abruptly from the rolling landscape. The landscape here is one of breathtaking chaos, featuring emerald lakes, roaring waterfalls, and forests of native Nothofagus trees, southern beach. All framed by the dramatic vertical mountains. The Torres and the Cuernos, Horns of Pain, are perhaps the most recognized mountains in the entire continent. A perfect distillation of Patagonian majesty. Attracting hikers and photographers from across the globe. Tierra del Fuego, the final frontier. Our journey concludes by traveling further south to the fragmented archipelago known as Tierra del Fuego. The land of fire. The final sliver of land before the frigid waters of the Drake Passage and Antarctica. The isolation here is total. Defined by the convergence of 2 great oceans. name was given by Ferdinand Magellan, who sailed through the nearby strait in 1520. And saw the plumes of smoke rising from the coastal fires of the indigenous people burning along the coast. These fires were kept alight by the Yámana people, the true masters of this maritime wilderness. The Beagle Channel, named for the ship that carried Charles Darwin during his historic voyage, is a narrow, treacherous waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The weather here is notoriously volatile, with sudden, violent storms sweeping in from the west. The deep, cold waters and the dark, forbidding mountains of the Darwin Range define this landscape. Sailing here is considered one of the ultimate nautical challenges. The Yámana were one of the most remarkable cultures of the world. A truly aquatic people who lived almost entirely in their canoes. They were often described as the naked savages because they wore minimal clothing. Instead, relying on thick coatings of animal grease and blubber for insulation against the sub-Antarctic cold. They lived on a diet almost entirely of seals, shellfish, and fish, demonstrating a radical adaptation to an environment most modern humans would consider uninhabitable. Their way of life, however, was brutally extinguished by contact with European settlers and missionaries in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Their demise remains one of the great tragedies of colonial history. The modern human presence is centered around the city of Ushuaia, the southernmost city in the world. located in Argentina. Ushuaia is a vibrant hub of tourism, fishing, and industry. Serving as the jumping-off point for most Antarctic expeditions. It is a place of dramatic contrast, with colorful houses clustered against the backdrop of the dark, snow-capped Marshall Mountains. The port is constantly busy with research vessels and cruise ships heading south. The landscape here is characterized by the Darwin Range, a chain of mountains on the large island of Tierra del Fuego. These peaks are heavily glaciated. And unlike the mountains further north, their glaciers descend directly into the sea and the Beagle Channel. This region has the largest concentration of Magellanic penguins and sea lions in Patagonia. Thriving in the cold, nutrient-rich waters. The dense kelp forests along the coast provide rich feeding grounds for marine life. The final geographical point is Cape Horn. A legendary nautical graveyard, where the waters of the Pacific and Atlantic violently converge. This treacherous point, defined by its extreme isolation and constant storms known as the Furious 50s, truly marks the geographical end of the civilized world. To round Cape Horn is an act of historical and nautical significance. A final confrontation with the untamed forces of the sea and the wind. A test that claimed countless lives before the Panama Canal offered a safer route. We have journeyed across the sheer granite of Fitz. The immense silence of the ice field. And the turbulent waters of the Beagle Channel. We have witnessed the tenacity of the Puma and the resilience of the Tehuelche. Patagonia is a place that strips away everything unnecessary. It demands respect, humility, and absolute focus. The sheer scale of the landscape dwarfs the human ego. forcing a profound existential clarity on anyone who spends time here. The enduring lesson of the South is that the wildest places are the most vital. They are the planet's last great sanctuaries, essential for the health of the entire hemisphere. Patagonia forces us to confront the raw power of nature, a power that is both destructive and profoundly creative. The wind is relentless. The ice is eternal. And the mountains are unmoving. This is a place of elemental perfection. If this journey to the elemental edge of the world has inspired you, join our community. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue to explore these crucial, high-stakes frontiers of our planet. Comment below, which of Patagonia's elemental forces, rock, ice, or wind, would you fear the most? What does the untamed beauty of this land mean for modern civilization? Patagonia remains. The mountains endure, and the call of the unreachable will always draw us forward.